From hating the glorification of black-on-black violence in mainstream media to revealing all about a traumatic childhood riddled with racism, here's the real reason why Adesanya refuses to fight other black fighters, and trust me, it might surprise you. There's a reason why we don't see him fight against someone of his descent. And honestly, after everything he's done so far to help spread more awareness about the BLM movement, it kind of makes sense. I'll get to that in just a bit. But according to activists, black-on-black violence is something that's been glorified in mainstream media for a bit too long. So for a fighter of Israel's level to go ahead and help make it even more mainstream, well, it kind of cancels out all the hard work he's done so far, doesn't it? Sure, it's not like he's never fought another athlete of color in his career, though. Those were usually bouts of mutual respect. Like the one with Anderson Silva, he only took that fight because Izzy idolized him as a fighter. There wasn't anything on the line. It was all just a matter of our hero meeting the one man he's adored since he started fighting. Another example of Adesanya facing off against a black athlete would be the time he faced off against Jared Cannonier. Again, we can't hold that against him because Jared had earned a title shot by destroying everyone else in the division. So to deny him the chance to win the belt, well, that would be even worse now, wouldn't it? After everything's said and done, I guess it makes sense that Adesanya doesn't want to face off against his brothers. This is something he believes in, and I guess we'll just have to respect that. I mean, the man gave a speech at a BLM march. Israel's been a huge supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement for a while now. He's constantly tweeting out in support of the movement and giving speeches here and there. Back in 2020, the Stylebender gave a speech for a BLM gathering in Auckland, and you could tell how passionate he was about the whole thing. Adesanya talked about how it doesn't make sense to spread hate based on the color of your skin. He was clearly emotional and went on to talk about how proud he was of himself. Being able to give a speech, that too, at such a huge event, it felt like a huge honor for him. It's totally understandable that he'd feel that way. As a man of color himself, whatever change he may have brought about by giving that speech, well, it clearly meant a lot to him. Izzy understands the importance of movements such as these, and he uses his social media to help spread more awareness. Honestly, he might be one of the few celebs who actually use their platform for good. The New Zealander was also seen taking part in the protest itself. It might have a little to do with the extra help he's been getting. A lot of people don't know this, but Adesanya sought out some professional help to help him get through a few mental issues he was having. Later, he came out and talked about how it helped him see life from a fresh perspective, and overall, just helped make things better. In an interview that took place in November 2022, Adesanya talked about how he'd been seeing a therapist to help fix up his life. Apparently, his therapist likes to be called a possibility manager instead. I mean, if you look at everything Israel said, she sure opened up a hell of a lot more doors for the man. The Stylebender talked about how she'd helped him view life through a different lens. He even talked about how he decided to take a step back and had taken a look at everything that was happening around him without being a slight bit biased. What he ended up noticing, well, it blew his mind. One of the few things that he took to heart was how his possibility manager taught him not to react or respond. I guess it's kind of obvious. I mean, the more you respond to all the evil happening around you, well, the more it ends up profiting off of the chaos. Thankfully, Adesanya learned pretty quick that the way he'd been dealing with everything, well, it wasn't the best way to go through life. Since then, he's come out and talked about the number of ways his life's gotten better now that he knows where to pour his energy. I mean, there was that one time he called out Colby Covington for his racist comments. There's no denying how, when the Covington controversy happened, there was a certain double standard to be seen. See, Covington went ahead and insulted Woodley by calling him a communist. He didn't just stop there either. Colby went on to call the BLM movement a sham that protects criminals. I don't know about you folks, but I'm pretty sure that Colby crossed a huge line right here. The worst part is, his rant didn't end there either. The American had a post-fight interview with ESPN where he ended up getting into a skirmish with Usman. Sure, they didn't get physical with it, but Covington's words were more than enough to inflict some serious hurt. He went on to mock Usman's Nigerian heritage by making references to smoke signals and tribal behavior. Somebody really needs to teach this man about being politically correct and respectful towards other cultures. Anyway, fast forward a few days, this makes it to the internet, and people raged over his comments. Adesanya was one of the fighters who responded to his comments, and boy, he did not hold back. He fired a few verbal shots in Colby's direction by talking about the backlash he faced when he made the Twin Towers joke. In case you're confused, I'm talking about when he joked about dropping Yoel Romero like the Twin Towers. Anyway, Adesanya was not happy with how everybody was giving Covington a free pass and stated that he was happy about Usman breaking his jaw. This makes you realize what kind of relationship Adesanya has with his African heritage. I mean, it's pretty clear that as the years have gone by, Israel's relationship with his African descent has only gotten stronger, and honestly, it couldn't have come at a better time. For starters, it's helped him forge a sort of brotherhood with other fighters like Usman, Edwards, Cannonier, and so on. Now, a lot of celebs do these kinds of things for show, to seem woke or to get a bit more clout, you know? But after watching Adesanya throughout his career, it's clear that he couldn't care less what other people think of him. He's more focused than ever and knows exactly what he needs to do. Plus, he sought out professional help to help guide him through any bumps he might face throughout his journey. He might not quite be there yet, but he's well on his way. The man's beginning to take a fresh, new look at life. He's beginning to connect with his ancestral traditions, among other things, and it's all helping bring him a sense of peace and belonging. This was clearly something he struggled with as a child. The constant bullying, the trauma, everything seems to be pent up inside him. Thankfully, Adesanya seems to be using his heritage as a way to release the pain and unload all that weight off of his chest. In case you didn't know, a huge part of the reason why he got so involved with the BLM movement was because of personal experiences from his childhood, which left him a bit traumatized. This next part might get a bit too real for some folks. So back when a 10-year-old Izzy first came to New Zealand, he dealt with his fair share of problems, and one of them was all the racist comments he had to face at the hands of the other kids. Though, as it turns out, there was one kid in particular who seemed hell-bent on giving Israel a hard time. He talked about how the boy would ride his bicycle past his house and call out racial slurs at him. Like you'd expect, Adesanya was left confused about why this was happening to him. Fast forward a week, and the bully decided to take it a step further. Apparently, he ended up pushing Izzy to the ground, after which Adesanya lost his cool. It's clear that the stylebender wasn't too proud of what he did next, though I certainly don't blame him. He ended up beating the kid's ass for a good minute before running away to hide. He also talked about how traumatized he was after the whole thing. Something important yet funny is that despite how serious the situation was, this was probably the first time Adesanya realized that he could whoop someone like a boss. Though the sad part is, his problems with racism didn't end there, though he definitely seems to be getting better over time. So, for his sake, I hope he continues to be passionate about making the world a better place. So, from revealing all about a traumatic childhood riddled with racism, to believing that black-on-black violence has been glorified in mainstream media, that was the real reason why Adesanya refuses to fight other black fighters.